Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. Bruce, what's going on, man? How are you?
Just another day in paradise, by God.
Well, man, I'm
You
excited.
like my summer shirt?
Is that your summer shirt?
Yeah.
So listen,
Actually, how
I'm
old are you?
I am 41. I'll be 42 in a month.
Shirt's almost as old as you, if not older.
Really?
This was my we talked about the verdict when Vince was found innocent and
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
that wonderful stuff for steroids and all that good shit.
Yeah.
And I remember the suit he wore, and I remember the shirt that I wore to go celebrate. And this is it.
That's your steroid trial shirt.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So yeah, that shirt's 30 years old.
At least, yeah.
Oh. Well, we're going to be talking about something that's nearly 30 years old. We had hoped to cover our topic this past March, but as has been the case for the past few years, you're usually busy during March. So we wound up doing a couple of best ofs, and we missed a great topic, WrestleMania 12, covering it today from the Arrowhead Pond in Anaheim, California. This
Home
is
of the
the,
Ducks.
this is the first WrestleMania we've covered since last year's episode on WrestleMania 21. And then, of course, we touched on WrestleMania 24. But my goodness, man, as if this wasn't stressful enough planning WrestleMania, you're also planning a wedding here in 1996. How crazy are you?
The wedding was the least of our problems.
Well,
That was easy. That was Las Vegas, Little White Chapel. I do, she do, we do. Let's go to Hong Kong.
all
Doesn't
right.
get any better than that.
Yeah, Hong Kong has always been the most interesting place to honeymoon ever to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you agree with that?
It's not as interesting as on a honeymoon as it is
I was gonna say if you're going on a boys trip, it's probably a little different than if you're going on a honeymoon.
probably so, yes.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I would tend to agree with that. But it was still beautiful, man. I love Hong Kong, and I loved showing her why I loved Hong Kong, and taking her around and getting to see all the sights. And Hong Kong to me is like a sophisticated New York City,
Wow.
except cleaner and more people speak English.
Oh my gosh, listen to you.
It's true.
Hey, since we're talking about New York there for a minute, it made me we haven't talked about this. Normally we talk off air. Have you been watching Succession? Of course, this Sunday is the season finale. Lots and lots of people have drawn wrestling parallels to that show. Clearly, it's loosely based on the Rupert Murdoch family, but I think this season might be the best single season any television show has had. I'm pumped for the finale this Sunday. Are you caught up?
I am caught up. Actually, no. Let me take that back. I did not see all of last week's.
Okay.
So I haven't seen the funeral. So that's
It's
not really a spoiler, is it?
well, it might be, but here's the deal.
Everybody knows that there was a funeral.
Well, I mean, the name of the show is Succession. I think we
Yeah.
can figure that out. But
Yeah.
yeah, here's the thing, man. I think they've hit a home run with this. I'm sad to see it go. The writing has been fantastic. WrestleMania 12 went down on March 31st, 1996. There's 15,855 fans in the building. 12,909 of those paid a gross of $737,000. And the show does 290,000 buys. When I think about maybe the forgotten WrestleManias, I often think of WrestleMania 11 with Lawrence Taylor and Bam Bam Bigelow. That one did 340,000 buys, and we're down here a year later with Bret and Shawn on top. I mean, surely you don't think LT was responsible for that difference, that extra 50,000 buys there. Was this just the business was on a down cycle here, or maybe they didn't want to see it? The new gas station opened, or what do we call that?
I do think that LT was responsible for a large number of those buys, especially in the New York metropolitan area. LT was a huge celebrity in the Northeast.
One of the other interesting things is you guys did a pay-per-view decrease. We almost never talk about that because it almost never happens. Usually it goes up. Let me explain. WrestleMania 34, or I'm sorry, WrestleMania 11 was
Say, damn.
34.95 and WrestleMania 12 was 29.95. So it went down $5. Normally we're used to price increases. Are you thinking, hey, maybe if we make it a little more affordable, more folks will buy it? Did we need to put a premium on it the prior year for our structure with LT? What's the strategy with a $5 decrease here?
I think it's as simple as we had always priced WrestleMania higher than the other pay-per-view events. And since we were now doing so many, the idea became, let's keep it at the same consistent price all year long so people don't look at their cable bill and go, whoa, wait a minute. I got $39.95 for this. Everything else is $29.95. They think they made a mistake. This way, no, just keep it consistent across the board for each event.
Well, of course, that would have been the big four, but you're still running in your houses that are going to be 2 hour shows for a reduced price, though, right?
Not for long.
Right. No, we know that eventually changes. The road to WrestleMania, of course, begins at the Royal Rumble, and that's where we would see Diesel cost The Undertaker his world title match against Bret Hart. Shawn Michaels wins the Royal Rumble. Goldust is going to win the Intercontinental title from Razor Ramon. And we see Vader make his in-ring debut for the WWF. And the very next night on Monday Night Raw, we have a classic angle with Vader and Gorilla Monsoon, and Vader is going to attack Monsoon, put him on the shelf. We've covered this in the archives of our Vader episode, which is a phenomenal episode over at somethingtowrestle.com.
It's astonishing to me. You just mentioned his name, Vader. And I really don't, as you know, don't do a whole lot of that social media stuff.
Right.
But reading and the number of people that have jumped on the Vader bandwagon as far as, yeah, no, he was horrible. He was horrible his last few years at WCW, and that he was a shell of himself. But when I say it, you look at it like it's just crazy. But Jake the Snake has said it, Nick Patrick, but also a lot of fans have made the comment that, hey, man, he lost at WCW, wasn't what people perceived him to be and what we wanted to hold on to. And, I thought that was nice and interesting because, again, great guy. Enjoyed sitting down and having a drink with him, but he wasn't that killer when he got to us.
Well, I argue it because as a fan, and I am a fan of Vader, I don't want to see my guys. I want to see them do well, and I don't ever want to acknowledge that maybe they've lost a step or they're getting older. I think we all long for the nostalgia, and
they can't stay that way forever.
I get that, and you approach it from a business standpoint of you're trying to put forth the best product, and I'm just pulling from my favorites. That's the difference. Between,
I think he needs new favorites.
well, he's no
like
longer.
Me. I need to be your favorite, okay?
You are my favorite, Bruce. And Vader's no.
It doesn't feel that way sometimes.
When you reschedule,
you're very hurtful sometimes.
When you reschedule our taping 42 times a week, do I not accommodate at 41? So how could you not be my favorite?
Hey, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. All right. I mean, come on, please. You really got to fucking not accommodate me one time?
Well, sometimes
it's hurtful.
Like, hey man, I'll be ready tonight at 11 p.m. It's like, I have to sleep eventually, Bruce. We started trying to tape this morning at 6. It's midnight. I'm going to bed now.
Well, that's on you.
That's on
you.
I agree.
That is on you.
Between the
I have not even bathed yet for you.
You don't ever have to bathe for me. I won't smell you all the way down here. And if I do, I will tell you it's time to bathe.
But I like to bathe first thing in the morning. But I didn't. I had other things to do.
Did you take a big country shit yet?
No, I haven't.
Wow.
No, I ain't taking a big city shit.
Is there anything more frustrating than thinking you don't have to go, taking a shower, and then realizing you have to shit? That's the most.
I go back in the shower.
Well, that's a shame.
No, well,
Between the Rumble and WrestleMania, a lot happens, including a pay-per-view. So we're going to go ahead and catch you up and just sort of close the gap. We would see Roddy Piper step into a new role here. He's going to be replacing Gorilla Monsoon, at least on screen, as the president of the WWF. Bringing Roddy in is always a good move. This is just nostalgia of pro wrestling. Of course, during the WrestleMania season, I mean, that first WrestleMania was all about Roddy Piper. So 12 years later, WrestleMania 12, here we are, or 11 years later. How does that deal come together for Roddy to be back and be in the ring?
So we were going to WrestleMania 12. So we ended up with the backstreet or backlot brawl with Goldust. The idea was one of, looking at what could we stunt? What could we do? And I think it was actually Vince Russo who came up with the idea of what if, somebody beat the shit out of OJ Simpson. OJ Simpson had recently been acquitted of, well, obviously he was acquitted from murdering his wife, but I think that the sentiment in America and all over the world, for that matter, felt that maybe OJ was not all that innocent. Mm-hmm. So the feeling was a lot of people wanted to beat the shit out of OJ and looking for someone in that realm because it was Hollywood, OJ, all that happened in Hollywood. Maybe there was someone who could beat the shit out of OJ. And the more we talked about it, the more that was an extremely poor taste and didn't want to do it. I'd contacted Roddy about, hey, would you do this? And he said, only if it were a shoot. I said, okay, well, probably not going to do that. But how you doing? Roddy and I started talking about other things, and then Gorilla Monsoon's health was not the best, and we thought, well, we could use Roddy here to be a interim president and a colorful character, but have him on the TV show and a use for him every week.
So maybe the original idea was we bring him in to do something with OJ. We know he's going to wind up working with Goldust, but the rumor and innuendo has always been it was originally going to be Scott Hall that worked with Goldust at WrestleMania.
Yeah, that was
the original plan.
That was the original plan. Yes.
We're going to talk about why that changed. Before we do, we should mention that before WrestleMania, we started.
Are you shaving your head or something?
What?
Are you shaving your head? Like I said, I got way too many like social things this
Oh
week.
no, at the moment, no, I'm not. But I'm with you. I have a bet with Eric Bischoff, and somebody's probably.
What's the bet?
You don't want to talk about it on the air.
Okay. So you're shaving your head?
No, he's shaving his head.
Why?
We made a bet, and he's going to lose.
How will he lose? How's anybody going to know if he actually loses if you don't share it on the air?
Well, we're going to. You don't want to talk about it right now. We're recording.
Oh, you and Eric are recording.
Okay, Bruce. We're
no.
You want to talk about AEW right now?
No.
Okay, so let's talk about it a little later, maybe.
Okay.
But there is a bet. I'm trying to be helpful to you here. Like, you don't want to talk about this on the show.
Okay. Listen to me. Here's the reason that I even brought it up.
Okay.
I'm in the way that the sunlight is hitting your head.
Oh,
every once in a while you turn and look, and I'm going, is he bald? Is that what people were talking about? Now I see it, but it's not as fluffy as it usually is. But see, when the sun hits it over there, then it kind of looks like, oh my God, Conrad's bald.
Well, listen, I might be if I lose, and I think somebody's probably getting their head shaven at Top Guy Weekend at the end of June. If I had to guess,
they're not getting it shaven. That's not a word.
Okay, shaved.
Yeah, but King's English, proper grammar. Come on, that's.
I listen. I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to sit here and be fucking berated by somebody who dressed like a goddamn Teletubby this morning.
Who's that?
You.
What's a Teletubby?
I mean, you're wearing a Laffy Taffy shirt sitting here talking about what may or may not happen with my hair.
And I look good.
I at least wake up and take a goddamn bath, you heathen,
At least I look good. I still look good.
with a hat on. Listen
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah, you don't want to see what's underneath that.
Maybe it should be shaven. So talk to me a little bit about these
Hillbilly.
wonderful vignettes from
Hillbilly. Who
Mankind
was it?
towards the
Wait.
rat.
Talk about who was it? Oh my God, who was it that called somebody Hillbilly Boy? Oh, it was, oh yeah, it was JR. Somebody called him Hillbilly Boy. I swear to God, he was hot for 6 weeks
Over Hillbilly Boy?
over Hillbilly Boy. I think Austin called him Hillbilly Boy when Steve turned heel. And JR thought that somebody fed that line to Austin, and he was bullshit for, I don't know, I think 12 years, something like that. He was bullshit. It was funny because it was 100% Steve Adlib. Hey, Billy Boy. Yeah.
Wow.
Next time when you're an old hillbilly, you go, hey, Hillbilly Boy.
I don't think I'm going to do that.
Why not?
I live in Alabama.
Yeah.
Well, that would be like,
Y'all could be
5,000.
cousins.
No,
Yeah. Be hillbilly cousins.
I don't think I have any kin in Oklahoma.
Come and listen to a story about a man named Jim. Poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. Then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground came a bubbling crude. We're gonna go
Barbecue
see
sauce.
Conrad, Alabama, Granny.
Thought you were going to go with barbecue sauce.
Well, that's a good one too.
I
Yeah.
see.
So they loaded up the truck and they headed to Huntsville. Yeah.
You're not gonna.
Movie stars, podcast stars, cement ponds, mansions.
What's wrong with you?
Well, you got the goddamn big old fucking Conradison mansion. They said he said he could see it right when he got out of the fog of Tulsa. He could see the mansion on the mountain. Way up there. He waved at it and said, hey, hillbilly cousin. Sassafras.
We don't have to talk about WrestleMania 12. We could just do the Bruce Prichard one-man show today. I'm fine with that.
I ain't scared.
I know.
I'm just saying. It's just, hey, how you doing, buddy? Yeah, goddamn. I'll stop off and see the King on the way. Go by to Jared Lawler, the King. 98 years old, still wrestling. Goddamn, I dropped that strap. Sometimes nowadays it seems it's hard to get the strap up over the shoulder. Hey man, shout out to the King, man. He's busting his ass, getting better, and it's having a rough row of it right now. But if anybody could ever kick out, it's the King.
Dude, he does it over and over and over. I expect nothing different here.
He does. He will outlive all of us.
Well, roll tide on that. Hopefully George the Rat could have suffered the same fate and outlived all of us. We know he did not. We learned that on the Jim Cornette episode of Something to Wrestle over at somethingtowrestle.com. But the Mankind vignette.
Breath maker for a rat. I had to make him breathe. So the rat could breathe. Yeah. Wake me up again at 5:30 in the morning and give me some time to get some shit done, and then get on here and do this. Know that I have to go in like a little while because I got other business things to do. But I must bathe and apply lotion to my skin so that I have silky smooth skin and smell good.
You picked the time. This was your pick.
Yeah.
Okay. Phineas Godwin debuts between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. Who's
Phineas I. Godwin?
Pig.
That's
What would the I stand for?
Irving.
Okay. Who brought Dennis Knight in? Who was a big fan?
I don't know. We saw him somewhere, and everybody likes Tex, man.
I got you.
So make him a pig. Make him a Godwin, by God. He looks like a Godwin brother, for God's sakes.
Another guy who's going to be debuting in this era, Justin Bradshaw, debuts on Superstar.
Who?
Justin Hawk Bradshaw.
Oh, that was that Stan Hansen wannabe guy, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Nobody probably had it on their bingo card that that dude would become a Hall of Famer, but he did.
I
So,
did it. I
so
called him in Germany when he was working for Otto Vons.
you said, man,
And
that Stan Hansen ripoff, he's gonna make it.
yeah, no, I loved his work. I thought he big, strapping young guy, great attitude, and working for Otto over there. Made appointments to be at the phone booth a certain time because they had no phone. The trailers over there that where they lived, and it was the big hippodrome thing where they wrestled in the same arena like every night. They all lived in the trailers back in the back, and he had to go to a payphone to get your call in order to make a call. So, yep, good guy.
The Billionaire Ted skits are going to debut.
Boy, did they.
We haven't spent a lot of time talking about that. I know.
Yes, we have way too much time.
What did you think of them?
Hated them. I hated them. I hated bringing attention to them. I just think that um, any publicity is good publicity. And it was telling people, oh, hey. But the one thing that it did was it let me know for sure that Razor was not going to do a new deal and that he was going to Turner. Same thing with Diesel because they refused to do them.
Oh, I see. Okay. So Scott Hall and Kevin Nash refused to participate in the Billionaire Ted skits.
Right.
Okay.
And this was before they told us 100% they were leaving.
Do you remember what the creative was that you pitched them that they passed on?
Just put over WWE and doing, WCW and that kind of stuff. It was nothing major, but it was something that they didn't want to do.
And they just said straight up, we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, In Your House number 6 is the pay per view between the Rumble and Mania. The highlights are going to include Razor Ramon beating the 1-2-3 Kid in a diaper match. Shawn Michaels is going to pin Owen Hart in a great match, and Bret Hart would beat Diesel in a steel cage after the Undertaker would interfere. And that show is kind of the beginning of the end for Razor and Diesel. We've covered it in the archives, but leaving the arena that night, both Scott Hall and Kevin Nash have sort of made up their mind that they're going to be going to WCW. And Scott Hall is almost immediately suspended for a failed drug test. Kevin Nash is unhappy that Vince McMahon agrees with Bret Hart on the finish of the cage match, and he's not going to get to hit the power bomb. What was your personal relationship with these guys? Like, are you trying to talk them into something, or is it like, hey, you want to go, go?
I wish it would have stayed. I personally wasn't, talking to him. I'm not going to say I had a great relationship with him. I don't think I had a bad relationship with them, but that was between them and Vince at that point.
The plan, as we mentioned, was supposedly going to be Razor and Goldust in a Miami Alley fight, but the plan has changed after Razor's suspension, and then of course he gives notice to go to WCW, and Piper's put in his place. Was the original plan, had he stuck around, would Razor have beat Goldust to win the Intercontinental title back? I mean, that feels like the proper way to pay that off. Was that the original plan?
The original plan was to do a Hollywood street fight in Hollywood, probably the same thing as the backlot brawl, very similar, just with Razor instead. We started it off in Bangor, Maine, and we shot the angle there with Razor and Goldust out in the snow, and that was a fun night.
That's the whole story. That was a fun night.
That was a fun night. A lot of good, a lot of disgruntles around that night. The best part is so Vince, myself, Michael Hayes, and I want to say one other person, maybe someone from the studio, all drove to Bangor. And we took Barry Dudinsky's Grand Cheap Jeep Cherokee. And on the way, real bad snow. Vince and I were looking at getting Grand Cherokee. We'd never actually driven one before. So Barry offered his up for us to take in the snow to Bangor, and we did. Along the way, Michael Hayes was driving sometimes. Michael was really wanting to play his tape of songs, original songs that Michael had written and
great.
sung.
We love
Okay.
that.
And
Love that.
he had put them on and had them mixed and had them on a cassette tape. And kept trying to, hey, I got something we can listen to. Y'all want to listen to this? And it was, no, we're good. Don't need any radio right now. So finally we put it, I'm like, yeah. Hey, come on, Vince. Come on. Let's listen. Put it in. Do. He's got do on here, man. Do. Around the world. And played it. Vince politely listened. Like, okay. I've heard it. No. There's side B. Well, let's turn it over. Because you had to physically take the media apparatus out of the tape machine, flip it over, and put it in. It was that old where it didn't just continually play. Later on, you could get it to where they would continually play.
Right.
And do this. And then it's like, God damn, I've got to go to the bathroom. We stopped to go to the bathroom, and lo and behold, the damnedest thing happened. When we were all got out to go to the bathroom to go in and get stuff to drink or whatever it is you needed to do. When we got back in the Jeep, that tape had disappeared.
Oh, fuck.
I know, right?
That's so disappointing.
We hadn't even heard side B yet.
Did you ever get to hear it, Bruce?
Well, as we were pulling out, realized, oh my God, do you have the tape? I don't have the tape. Do you have the? No, I don't have the tape. No, lost tape. Sorry, Michael. I'll reimburse you. Well, that's okay. I got like 6 more of them right here.
Oh.
And then we thought that maybe the tape machine liked it so much that it wanted to suck it into the car and never ever have it be able to be heard outside of the car, so that particular vehicle could enjoy. Do nasty and hot. The battery got to do. See, I speak do.
Dude, you crushed that.
Yeah, I'm fluent.
Talk to me about, we've touched on it before a little bit. The rumor and innuendo is that Scott Hall was not thrilled to be working with the Goldust character. Is that true? Mm-hmm. How much of him leaving do you think that played a part?
I think Scott had already made up his mind, but he still was not thrilled about working with Goldust. I don't think he liked the gimmick and didn't want to do it.
Okay.
You'd have to ask him for his reasons. That's the reasons that he gave us.
So there's, he wants some more money. He wants a guaranteed deal. He wanted the opportunity to work in Japan. Didn't want to work with Dustin, or this character, not Dustin. Maybe it does feel as if we're just sort of mounting the reasons. Do you think at some point he was trying to sell himself on this is the right call and why it's the right call to leave?
Yeah, I think he was looking for excuses and looking for reasons to point to. But that's all speculation. I just think that he had made up his mind. He was ready to go. Much easier schedule on the other side. Mm-hmm. So, man, that's an alluring factor. So, yeah, I think he was already sipping pina coladas with the little umbrellas in them and shit in Atlanta.
Listen, lots of moving parts. Vader is in. Bradshaw is in. Mick Foley is in. Scott Hall is out. Piper is back. And now the Ultimate Warrior is back. He's going to be scheduled to face Hunter Hearst Helmsley at WrestleMania. We've covered the Warrior in the archives. But do you remember there being I mean, this is not curtain call punishment. Do you remember that? I mean, that hasn't even happened yet. Do you remember Triple H having any objection to what he was asked to do here for the Warrior?
I think no, actually there wasn't, but I think he knew what he was being asked to do. He was well aware of what his place was and what he needed to do in this situation.
The in hindsight, maybe not the best call. Neither were these skits though. These billionaire Ted skits. Meltzer would say the Huckster Nacho Man Billionaire Ted skit slash match will be on the pregame show, which pretty much removes the legal threats from that skit by using the likenesses of Hulk Hogan, Ted Turner, and Randy Savage, all owned or controlled by WCW, as part of an endeavor in which the public pays for it, which pay per view falls into, but a free show doesn't. They would open themselves up for a potential legal action down the road. Did you just think, man, the sooner we get this out of Vince's system, the better? I mean, who's in his ear telling him this is a good idea?
I don't think there's anybody in his ear. I think that that's just something that he wanted to do. It's simple as that. The more that you would tell him no, the more he'd dig in.
I see. Well, let's I mean, do you remember that being an issue? The threat of, hey, we can't put these characters on pay-per-view. That might be a legal issue. Let's put it on the pre-show. Is that the strategy? I mean,
I don't
nobody's
think
buying
that
the
was a
dog.
strategy as much as it was that if you put that on the WrestleMania itself, that would make it the worst WrestleMania in the history of God's green earth. So you could do something prior to if people wanted to watch that. But I think people would have been disgusted if that had been a part of the actual WrestleMania itself.
Let's talk about Raw on February 19th. Uh, Steve Austin's personality. He's going to be on the show, and Vince McMahon is going to refer to Steve Austin's personality as being stone cold. And he drops the ringmaster gimmick just a week later. It's interesting to see how that all begins really right before WrestleMania 12. Do you remember having any discussions about, hey, we're going to give this guy, as you like to say, a fresh paint of coat? No more ringmaster. We're going to try this
Steve,
stone cold thing.
if you go back and listen, there were hints dropped all along the way. You know, whether it was JR talking about it or Vince talking about it or Michael Hayes, it was a slow evolution to become Stone Cold. And once we got to that point, you know, you drop the ringmaster altogether, and he's Stone Cold Steve Austin. But that had been going on for a while, just very subtly.
You know, we know that Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to become synonymous with flipping dudes off and talk about, you know, kicking people's ass and a much edgier presentation that we've seen before. But before Austin's doing it, in between the Rumble and WrestleMania, Diesel is doing it. He's going on TV and flipping people off and saying he's going to kick the Undertaker's 7-foot ass. And this is pretty aggressive for the product at the time. Is this something that Diesel discusses? I mean, is this a creative decision or is this him just
Oh
trying
no,
to?
that was 100% Vince.
Okay,
You know, just do this one thing. You know, you only do it one time, and that's it. So, just something to be a little edgier and be a little different.
right. Let's talk a little bit about Mark Henry. He's going to debut on a March edition of Monday Night Raw. Who would have been? I mean, we've heard a lot about Jerry Briscoe scouting guys like this, and certainly Jim Ross. Was Mark Henry a pet project of anybody in particular? I mean, what was the who was the driving force behind signing Mark?
Vince, long before Jerry was scouting anybody, and long before JR was doing any of that shit, that was 100% Vince through Mark's manager, who was Terry Todd. Terry was the strength and conditioning coach at the University of Texas. Terry was a strong man and trained Mark since Mark was a kid. Um, Terry had done the piece, you know, for those historians. There was a great piece done in Sports Illustrated many years ago with Andre the Giant, and Terry Todd is who did that piece. Terry was a writer, but just a wonderful guy. Tremendous. He was a coach. He was a coach, and he was more like a father to Mark Henry. And Terry brought Mark to Vince and said, "Hey, you got to see this guy. He is the world's strongest man. He's going to the Olympics, and big wrestling fan. And as a motivator, we'd love to be able to tell him that once you compete at the Olympics, once you finish this, you have a career in WWE." So that was it. We had Mark and Akam Bret were our first two real students at the production facility where Tom trained. He trained Akam Bret and Mark Henry.
Is that what we would see on TV as Tough Enough, originally called Tracks, or
No,
is that a different facility? Okay.
no. This was a TV studio in the warehouse. It was a ring in the middle of a warehouse.
Well,
That was it.
well, let's talk about the build for the main event here. Roddy Piper is going to announce that it's Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. Of course, we know Shawn has won the Royal Rumble, so he's punched his ticket. He's going to have his shot to achieve his boyhood dream and get a world title shot at WrestleMania in the main event against Bret Hart. But Piper announces it's an Ironman match. But the concept being they're going to go 60 minutes, and the person who wins the most falls wins the WWF World title. I'm sure Pat Patterson is loving this. Do you remember whose idea originally it was to do an Ironman match?
Yeah, it's Pat Patterson's. Pat wasn't even working there at the time. But it was Pat Patterson's match. He had talked about it for a long time. We had this idea, of the finish, knew that Bret and Shawn could pull it off. They did. But gosh, man, we had pitched this like maybe October, November. Then Pat was gone, but he did come back for that one match. He came back for that WrestleMania, to come to my wedding and also go to WrestleMania.
It's one of the more iconic WrestleMania main events, although not my favorite. I see people talk about it all the time on social media, and the buildup is something that Bret has always sort of taken issue with. He would contend that, the way this was built, he's the quote unquote old guy as he's running in Calgary in this sweatsuit and rolling around getting stretched by his dad, Stu Hart, in the dungeon. Meanwhile, the videos sort of show Shawn Michaels being young and athletic. I mean, I didn't see it that way. I could see how maybe he took it personally, or I could try to see that. But as a fan watching at the time, or certainly right after WrestleMania when I saw this, I felt like, this was a Rocky style montage for both guys. We would see Rocky Balboa training, and then we would see Ivan Drago training. I wouldn't say that one was better. They were just different. What say you?
Agreed. It was different. It was as different as the talent were, their training techniques were very different. So you wanted to compare and contrast. Shawn, more fundamental, more traditional, going back to his roots, going back to his family, going back to Calgary in the way that he was brought up. Shawn, it was the same thing. We're shooting Shawn in a dingy warehouse where he learned to work. I didn't look at it as old guy versus new guy. They were practically same age, even though they're not. I think Bret's a few years older than Shawn is, but there was no old guy or young guy. I think they were viewed equals.
I mean, that's kind of the way I saw it. I didn't see it as one was superior to another. And I think Bret Hart's "You Start the Fire" music video in this era is one of the best that the company did. Who deserves credit for that?
Me,
Oh, really?
I guess. I don't know.
Okay, so you're just going to take it either way.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, no. When I say that, it was my idea to do the dueling videos and to do the training montages, and Vince and I went and did Shawn's in San Antonio at one point while we were down there doing the uh, gosh, we were doing a press conference of some kind in San Antonio, and we were down there. Then we had TV that week, so we stayed and we shot plenty of the vignette material for these. So thought it was well thought out. To me, as thought out as Hogan Savage, just a little different.
It is different. Jose Lothario introduced as Shawn Michaels' manager. Why did you guys think that Shawn needed Jose, and did Shawn think he needed Jose?
Wanted Shawn to be real. Wanted Shawn to have the guy that brought him into this business be the one that is going to take him to the championship. Jose brought Shawn into the business. Shawn went out on his own, became very successful, but could never win the big one, could not get to the championship. And the feeling was bring Jose in is the one missing piece that Shawn needed to complete that circle and win the championship. Jose, did mean something. It was, still with our Hispanic audience in that demo, Jose would resonate. Jose would mean something. And it gave Shawn a more human feel to him versus being the heartbreak kid. Now he's also a serious competitor.
We would see Mark Marrow and eventually Sable sign with the company. How do you remember those negotiations going down? Of course, you've seen a lot of your talent starting to move towards Atlanta, whether it's the Mean Genes or the Bobby Heenans, or certainly the Hulk Hogan's and Randy Savages, and most recently, Scott Hall's and Kevin Nash's. But now you've got the Johnny B. Bad character. Well, actually, it can't be that character, but the guy who portrayed the character, he's coming up. What do you remember about how all that went down?
I remember being a big fan of Johnny B. Bad and thinking, wow, this guy's got charisma out the ass. Just incredible. Wasn't the greatest worker. I didn't care about that. But Johnny B. Bad could come out, get the audience on their feet, get them involved in the match, and just you enjoyed watching him and looked like a star. I had met him at a NATPE convention, the National Association of Television Programmers. Not the biggest guy in the world, but man, he had just a presence. Yeah, that charisma, man. And bringing him up to meet with us, all of a sudden you talk to him, and it's wow. It's the guy who was in the junior high prom that's now trying to have a decent part in a Broadway show. And you start realizing, oh man, I think this was the gimmick that was so good. The gimmick made him, not vice versa. But we tried, very personable. God, Mark is so damn personable and just a genuinely
good dude too.
Yeah, he's a real good dude. I think he genuinely cares for people, and it's not phony. It's just he's just Mark. That just isn't always enough.
Hakushi is going to finish up around this time as well. He had an incredible look and some cool music and a couple of good matches, but it felt like he never really clicked in the company. What could we have changed about his presentation, do you think, that would have made a difference, or is it just timing or something else?
If he could speak to the audience and be able to communicate with them, I think that would have made a huge difference. But Hakushi did not really make an effort to learn how to speak English. And just coming out and doing that presentation is one thing. But it was hard to connect because no one knew what he was about, who he was, or why he was. And that's just communication, lack thereof.
I think Jinsei Shinzaki, the guy behind the character, enjoyed a lot of success over in Japan, and it was such a cool look. I can't help but wonder, in hindsight, do you think if we had a stronger mouthpiece for him, that could have worked.
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the final run up to the WrestleMania show here, the company is going to sell out Madison Square Garden for the first time since WrestleMania 10. But this isn't a pay per view, this is a house show. And it's the first one that's been sold out since the mid 80s. So this has got to be a vote of confidence. What does it is Bret Hart teaming with The Undertaker to take on Shawn Michaels and Diesel on top. This has to be encouraging. I mean, what was the old thing we've heard people say that Vince would say? You know, the garden, I mean, obviously it sort of was a barometer for his family for a long time, but how business is going to go. And if it works here, it'll work in other markets and all that sort of thing. So to see this show sell out, the first sellout for a house show since the mid 80s, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it was really good. Definitely really good. And business wasn't bad during this time. It was even keel. We had our ups and downs, that's for damn sure. But it was kind of on an even keel at this point. The guidance, the guidance.
Yeah. You talked last week about, or a few weeks ago, about all the drama going into WrestleMania and how you really got to keep building it. Did you think that I mean, just there's so many moving parts when you rattle off what all we've talked about so far. Piper and Warrior are back. Hall and Nash are out. Miro's coming in. Hakushi's finishing up. Here comes Foley. We're evolving the Stone Cold character. I mean, it feels like there's so many moving parts just between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. And oh, by the way, you're trying to put on the biggest show that you guys do every year
And get married. The
and
big
get
wedding to go
married.
to.
Um, is it just sort of blink and you miss it? Because it feels like you got to be working 18-hour days here.
Oh God, yes. It was nonstop. Absolutely nonstop. You have monkey wrenches being thrown into the middle of it. Which we'll get to in a little bit. You have people getting hurt and injured and pre-tape matches that they now, oh shit, we got to finish this live in the building. There's just so much going on in a wedding. It's like WrestleMania, two TVs and a wedding can make a movie.
It is crazy when you think about that you did all of that at the exact same time. Well, let's talk about the show, man. We're finally here. The Observer readers are going to give it 68.7% thumbs up, 24.8% thumbs down, 6.4% thumbs in the middle. I thought it was a thumbs up show. What'd you think? Thumbs
I
up?
thought it was a good show.
No.
It was a pretty cool atmosphere in Anaheim. It felt like a big show, and the audience was into it. Everything around it, there was a lot of buzz, especially in market, but also around the world. People people felt the change in the air.
I feel like we should also mention that this WrestleMania is going to be special for more than one reason. Um, your brother gets the debut with the company in 1995, but this is his first WrestleMania. And make no mistake, WrestleMania was the big show then, now, forever. He's going to be teaming up with Chris Candido. Of course, they are the Body Donnas along with Sonny, and they win the tag titles in a tournament final over the Godwins. They go 5 minutes and 28 seconds. Sonny's going to lift up her skirt, give a little panty shot to distract Phineas, and that allows Skip to come from behind and get the schoolboy win. But here your brother is at his first WrestleMania, winning the tag title. That's got to be a big deal, man, for the whole fam, right?
I think he's pretty excited. Yeah, it's a big deal. I don't care who you are. That's a big deal to be able to accomplish that and do it on the grandest stage of them all.
We also see before the actual show starts, not just that tag match, but the Nacho Man, the Huckster, and billionaire Ted, and Meltzer would say the skit died within seconds. They air a taped
See,
segment.
that's bullshit. That's bullshit. That skit was never alive.
I love you.
There's nothing. There was nothing to die. It was dead on arrival.
Um, There's a big guy in a black robe who comes in with FTC on his outfit. Ted Turner turns around, sees him. He has a heart attack and is left for dead. The segment is awful. Who wrote this? Is this all Vince just hamming it up, having fun? Oh no, you didn't write it, did you?
No, I produced it though.
Yeah.
No one wrote it.
Clearly.
No one wrote it. It was do this, do this, do that, do this, do this. Okay. I did it.
And that was it.
That was it.
Well,
And we had to have a different huckster because the other huckster was unable to do the dates or something like that. We had a different Nacho Man, I think. Yeah, it was horrible. It's horrible. Horrible. Rotten. The shits. The drizzling shits.
well.
The fire Cheetos shits.
Oh, the flaming hot Cheeto shits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty
That's how
bad.
bad it was.
So listen, let's start the show. We got Vader and Owen and Davy Boy in a 6-man here against Jake Roberts, Ahmed Johnson, and Yokozuna. This really feels kind of thrown together. Um, I know Owen and Davy are going to be a more permanent tag team. Vader just being thrown in the mix here. And I wonder, I mean, was this the original plan? This couldn't have been the original plan. Like Jake, Ahmed, and Yokozuna. What a random group of folks here.
Main event anywhere in Southern California.
I'm not arguing that it's not big names and big talent, but I just wonder, is this an effort to, hey, well, these are all big stars. Let's all find a way to get them a WrestleMania payday and get them on the show?
Yeah, I guess so. It was just let's get them on the show somehow.
Yeah. Well, we did it, and the match isn't bad. It gets 2.5 stars. They got 12 minutes and 51 seconds. You know, once upon a time, it wasn't that long ago, Yokozuna was in the main events of these sorts of things, and that is not the case here. Ahmed Johnson had enjoyed quite a bit of momentum, and now it just feels like he's sort of forgotten. I wonder if you didn't have so much talent moving, you know, here and there and yon, would these guys have been in different storylines? Why weren't they a priority? I guess is what I'm looking for.
Well, again, you only have so much room at the top.
Right.
Not everybody can be at the top. And if you're not drawing and you're not 100% the top draw, man, it's you just don't stay at the top. You got to move around. That's just fact of life.
We've talked a little bit before on our Piper and our Goldust episodes about the Hollywood backlot brawl. As I understand it, the majority of this was taped the day before.
Oh God, no! We did this like a week before.
Okay, so talk to us about how this happens, because as I understand, I think the original plan maybe was, hey, we're gonna do it old school and get some color on you and do it hard way, and people are getting hurt for real and hitting each other with cars, and we've got to account for the weather because we're trying to sell it as if, you know, we know what the weather's going to be like. So I think you guys wet the scene down. Just catch me up on what you recall about the old backlot brawl.
Well, you get there in a rainstorm, and so it was all wet. Didn't know what the weather was going to be like, you know, the day of WrestleMania. So we went down the street like, hey, I'm ready for him. I'm wetting everything down, so it'll be slippery when it gets here. Just taking care of some of those things, but nobody wanted to get blood because you have a week or 4 days or whatever the hell it was, but it was a lot, definitely was not the day before. It's going to be all dried up. It's going to look like shit. Then what? You want to open them up again for the live? That's unrealistic. And whoever had that rumor and that note would be incorrect. Unless, you know, Piper and Goldust just talked about it. And, oh, hey, wouldn't it be great if we did this? But we did talk about it and said what we did not want, and we did not want that.
I see.
Unfortunately, it didn't happen that way because we did get blood and they did get bloodied. And it was like, well, shit. Now we got to deal with it. Um, it was crazy, man. It was crazy. You know, we talked about Larry Burton the other day, part of the Memphis lawsuit and all that. Larry Burton also helped us get the backlot brawl with some folks, with Mitch Ackerman from Disney helped out. We did it Paramount, maybe. I don't even remember where we did it. Universal, Paramount, wherever the hell we were. We went in, we had a sound stage, and then we had the alleyway in between the sound stages that we could use. Looked around, had a couple cameramen. Hey, I can use a camera up there. I can use a camera here. Ding. So what if you walk over here? Went over, had a bagel, and shit's on.
And shit's on.
That's kind of how we did it. I think that they were all waiting for us to lay out, scene one, shoot that 10 times. Scene two, take a bite of the bagel
Mm.
and shoot that 42 times. Because you want one with cream cheese, you want one with honey, you want one with a little jam, maybe it's just a little butter. How about you eat it just plain and dry? Mm-hmm. Well, goddamn, there's some locks right there. I'm gonna put me some fucking locks, a little onion on top, some capers and shit. No, it's not how we do it, man. Shit's real. And went through all, I mean, literally went all the way through it in one take, got all the way out into the alley, and it was on. And they just did it. We didn't stop them. But Piper's nuts as it is. Roddy wanted Goldust to charge him with the car and hit him with the car. Felt, he could take the bump over the top and onto the windshield and all that good stuff. But I think the biggest thing that I remember that day is as they came out of the alleyway and they turned right, you were in the studios. So people have offices and everything all over there. And they had all reserved parking. And we might have clipped a vehicle or two, making that corner. And this is after people were like, oh, what the hell are they doing? They're making so much noise. And by God, they better not drive down this road. We might have accidentally driven down that road.
Oh.
And so we got her all done, and come to find out, Piper had broken his arm, broken his wrist, broken his knuckles on Goldust's head. We had to go in and get Piper's arm splinted and set. What happened to Goldust? I think Goldust got a concussion. It was ugly. It was just bad. Then you have to recreate that when you get back into Anaheim. So the idea was that, Goldust would take off and then Roddy would jump in just a random vehicle and chase behind him and chase him all the way to Anaheim. And we got some helicopters and we were able to follow it.
The white Bronco, of course, this is an OJ reference. That's the only holdover on this show from the OJ reference.
Well, it was the only car that was there. It was available, and so Roddy jumped in it.
Sure. Listen, there's something here in the Observer I want to ask about. The way the scene was shot and replayed, it appeared that running over the segment was actually done by a stuntman dressed to look like Piper. Is that a stuntman taking the car bump?
100% no. That just, again, shows how idiotic, uninformed, stupid, and lying that Dave Meltzer is. More uninformed and ignorant.
Of course, we don't see a conclusion of the match, but we do start another match. It's going to be Steve Austin and Savio Vega. Austin gets the win, 10 minutes and 8 seconds. It's a 2-star match. Meltzer would say the work itself was good in spots and slightly off in others. Both guys worked hard, but there was no heat, and the finish died live. Um, could you see? Listen, we all think the world of Savio Vega. What a big pop he got in Puerto Rico. Really glad he got his moment in the sun there. But could you see where this new paint of coat in Austin was really going to work already at this point?
I don't think it was going to hurt. I don't know that anyone expected it to get as big as it did.
Right.
But I think you can also go back and look and never be able to find a bad Savio Vega Steve Austin match.
No. And
Great chemistry, and God, they worked their asses off no matter where they were on the card. And to me, this was no exception.
I think I've seen or heard Austin give a lot of credit for Savio Vega for helping get him comfortable and get him up and going here in the WWE. Gives him a lot of credit for some of his early success and just the ability to launch into what's
Yeah.
coming. And it's funny too, because you've seen like Goldust when Dustin Rhodes was trying to figure that character out, he gives a lot of credit to Savio for the little things. Like, hey, what if we tried this? And what if you did this and then I did that?
Yeah.
Savio is maybe one of the more
Underrated.
underrated,
Underrated.
underappreciated, and really, I think the word I was trying to get to was giving. I mean, a lot of times, guys, we hear about, hey, here's what I want to do, as opposed to, hey, man, why don't you try this? It feels like Savio was doing that for both Dustin and Stone Cold, no?
All the time. He did it for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, Savio would look at the story overall and make sure everybody was taken care of.
Next up, a big moment for the WWF. You know, they had enjoyed a lot of success once upon a time, and they're looking for some of that return to glory. So here he comes, the 39-year-old Ultimate Warrior, pinning Hunter Hearst Helmsley in 1 minute and 38 seconds. All it takes was 3 clotheslines, a shoulder block, a press, and a splash, and that's it. And Meltzer would say Warrior got by far the biggest reaction on the show when he came out, but it was amazing to see how quiet the crowd got after the ring intro. But since Helmsley did the pedigree right away and Warrior didn't sell it and they went right to the finish, the crowd picked right back up. Helbig was a little smaller than at his peak, but he's also 39 years old and he was quite a bit larger and more cut than when he returned last time. It gets a dud here. He's going to squash a heel, though, who's just kind of getting up and going. Just totally shits on the finish of the pedigree. But the reaction, man, if there was any doubt about whether or not this was a good call or the right call, you got to be encouraged when you hear the fans respond like they do. But as a friend of the show once said, then the bell rang. What do you remember about this?
Well, it sucked. I mean, the match itself sucked. It was awful. I think it would have meant a lot more for Warrior to have a bit of a match to versus what he did, because I think that in some ways people were happy to see the greatest hits of the Ultimate Warrior, or the greatest hit
Yes.
um, of the Ultimate Warrior, but obviously didn't do Hunter any good
Favors.
in
No.
this, and it just wasn't good. Just wasn't good. Warrior was difficult to deal with all day long. And as soon as Vince went out to do play by play, he became even more difficult to deal with. And at that point, we all agreed, get the match in the ring and do what you got to do. And that's what we did. And hats off to Hunter, who, you know, did it. Hats off to Jerry Briscoe having to deal with it all day long. And that's where we were, man. It was not, to me, it was kind of the here's what we have and here's what we're going to have. It isn't, he's on his best behavior today. Can only go downhill from there. And it did.
Can you tell us, you know, when you said it got worse when Vince went out on commentary? I understand what you mean. He was on his best behavior for Vince, but then it sounds like you were implying when Vince went out and got on the headsets, Warrior became an asshole.
Well, pretty much always stayed an asshole. No, he, at that point, then he changed the match. No, I'm not going
I
to do all
see.
that stuff that we talked about. This is what we'll do. So
Wow. And now
not
you're,
good. Not a
now,
good experience at all.
is anybody able to communicate that to Vince on the headset, or is it better just leave it alone and we'll just handle it? And Vince has, other things at hand right now.
I informed him of it in between matches. We don't have commercial breaks, so you have packages or
Right.
backstages or whatever. I've got a few seconds to talk to him. He just said, "Bruce, get it done." So I got it done.
Well, listen, the fans were excited to see him back, and I was amongst them. I mean, when I heard the Ultimate Warrior was coming back, I was interested, and then the bell rang. In a segment that doesn't air for the live audience, they're doing an interview to introduce the Wild Man Mark Mero here on pay-per-view. He's going to do a heel interview with Helmsley coming out, and the two start arguing and fighting. Helmsley then blames the fight on the woman who they called Sable that accompanied to the ring, and this is really a glimpse into the future, man. I mean, Sable and Hunter are going to be two of your biggest stars just a couple years after this. I don't know that anybody would have necessarily called that here. I think a lot of people hoped and thought it was going to be Mark Mero. You want to give us that Mark Mero impression again? That was good stuff.
It's horrible. He's a wild man. So that's why I did all that shit, because he's a wild man, Mark Mero.
He's doing like a Tarzan gimmick of sorts, though, but not really.
I don't know what the fuck he was doing. It was like Batman on acid.
He was not Batman. Uh,
Well, he was doing the Batman dance kind of thing.
we're gonna get the big dudes in here next. Undertaker and Diesel. It's a really long match. I thought it was maybe too long. 16 minutes and 46 seconds. Meltzer would say the match was slow moving and didn't have much heat, but it was better than you'd expect considering who was involved. Diesel basically pounded Undertaker for most of the match, and finally he used his jackknife, then smirked forever, allowing Undertaker to sit up. He did it again, and when he went for the pin, Undertaker grabbed him by the throat. Diesel uses a back suplex. Undertaker sits up again, and then Undertaker finishes Diesel off with a nice flying clothesline, a choke slam, and a tombstone. And the closing scene is pretty iconic. You see Diesel laid out in the middle of the ring, and it always made me wonder, like, this is a fun what if Diesel doesn't give notice and he's not leaving, Kevin Nash is not going to WCW, he's sticking around, does he wind up beating the Undertaker here? Does that end the streak before it ever really becomes a thing?
No,
Okay.
no, he would not have.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a good match. I think that Kev was not in a good place this time. And
Just didn't want to be there, ready to be done.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think got Undertaker in a bad place. And we ended up with what we ended up with.
So it rubbed off on him, and then the Undertaker was upset, or what do you mean when you say got
Yeah, I
him?
just think that it just, the attitude and the negativity went over to around everyone that he touched.
I got you. It just brought a cloud over the match and the
Right.
I got
Yeah.
you. Was there ever any concern that Kevin wouldn't do business on the way out?
I don't think so. I don't think Kevin could be difficult to deal with at times, but I don't think Kevin would ever say, no, I'm not going to do that with a guy like Undertaker.
What did Undertaker think about two staples and Razor Ramon and Diesel leaving? You remember having a conversation with him in this era about how he took that?
Sure. I mean, Taker didn't like it. Taker wished they would have stayed. Um, but then again, with Mark had been there longer, and Mark is loyal. So he wasn't looking to go anywhere, felt Vince had done right by him and didn't want to leave. I don't know that he really understood it. I know, I do know he understood it. I was going to say, I don't know if he really understood what got him to that point. Maybe is the right question.
What do you mean?
What got Razor and Diesel to the point of saying, no, I'm gone. We're out of here. No matter what you throw at me, I'm gone.
Mm,
Um, I think Mark kind of felt, as a lot of us did, that everything can be worked out.
right.
So
Do you believe in that though? That listen, I understand, and I like the idea of, let's say an NFL player, he starts his career with his team with a team, and he finishes with that team, and he goes into the Hall of Fame wearing that team's jersey. I get that. I like that. But are you of the mindset, the mentality that every now and again people just need a change of scenery?
I
Might
do.
not be better, might not be worse. It just needs to be different. Do you think that's where they were? They needed something different.
I don't think that's where they were, but I do believe in that.
Yeah,
I think they were in it for an easier schedule and more money.
nothing wrong
That's
with
simple.
that.
And there isn't anything wrong with it. I'm not knocking it at all.
Yeah.
So,
Well, during the show, we continually see scenes of this OJ chase.
but
I'm
OJ
sorry.
wasn't
I'm
there.
sorry. I'm sorry. Roddy Piper's white Ford Bronco.
Yeah, yeah. It's going
Didn't
down
go Goldust.
101, and we
Yes.
had a helicopter that was able to shoot all that. Thank God, you know.
Was that a little too campy in hindsight?
No, it was absolutely spot on. How's that campy? Come on, it's WrestleMania. It's Hollywood, please.
Okay. Just
How many
asking.
times has that same thing been used a million different times with other people? Sure, it was campy. But what's too campy?
I was just asking if this was, and you said no.
That's right.
Goldust pulls up at the arena. He's here to pick up Marlena. He's going to bump into Pat Patterson, who most folks thought was not with the company, but he's at least back for this weekend, as you
He
said. And
came for the wedding.
now they're going to continue the fight in the arena. And eventually Goldust gets the advantage. He starts kissing Piper. Piper's eventually going to grab Goldust's crotch and start squeezing. He's going to throw a knee to the groin and start spanking him. And then he rips the costume off, and we reveal that Goldust is wearing a bunch of stuff from Fredericks of Hollywood underneath.
From
Uh,
J.J. Dillon's closet.
you got to give me something. You can't just say that sentence and look at me.
I said he got it from J.J. Dillon's closet. You never seen J.J. Dillon wear garters and
No,
all that?
no.
Oh, I thought you were a wrestling fan. Okay.
Goldust wrote in his book he got it from Fredericks of Hollywood. So where's the JJ joke coming from?
Because that's what JJ used to do. Whenever they'd rip his clothes off and shit, he'd always be wearing women's
Oh,
underwear.
oh, 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 yeah. Okay. Back in the day. I thought you meant like, I'm like, was JJ even here at that moment? I mean,
He
um,
was still there.
yeah, a little while longer. Eventually, Piper gets the win. Marlena's going to run away, trying to help Goldust cover up, and Piper gets to celebrate with his son Colton in the ring. It was Meltzer called it really good and had great heat, and I'm sure it meant a lot to Piper to have his son there. Did this feel like a celebration and a reunion? I mean, just having Piper back. I mean, he's at that time one of the pillars of this thing that built it, and he had been away and back and forth, and but a big WrestleMania moment with his son, that's a feel good deal, no?
Very. And for me, it was a happy moment for me because I love Roddy Piper. And I was glad that he was able to have another WrestleMania moment. And I was glad that we could accommodate and have Colton come out and be there with his dad. That was very important to Roddy as well. And I was like, that's not even a discussion. Of course you can't. So it was cool for me to have Roddy back in the company, and it was cool to give him that moment. I thought that was a special thing that took place.
All right, let's talk about the main event. I have gone on record, Bruce, as saying I think the Iron Man stipulation sucks. I love Bret Hart. I love Shawn Michaels. No doubt, two of the
Yeah, I
best
thought Four
wrestlers.
Horsemen sucked. So
What I like about wrestling a lot of times, Bruce, maybe the same thing I like about MMA. is I feel like I can get on the edge of my seat about it could end at any time. And, you could win or lose the match just like that. That's not the case with an Ironman. And I find myself watching an Ironman much like I would like regular season basketball. Let me just see the last few minutes. I don't have to watch the rest of it. Now, that's not to say I don't enjoy wrestling, but I just feel like there's no stakes and I feel like it's going to be more predictable. Sometimes in a basketball game, the last few minutes, there's going to be a blowout. That's almost never the case with an Ironman. It's not like we're going to get down to the last 2 minutes and one guy's up 5-0. That's not going to happen. That's a
It
terrible
could.
over. It
It's got
could, but it
predictability about it.
probably never has.
It has.
Do you think where are you on the Iron Man stipulation?
I like the Iron Man stipulation. But then again, I like wrestling.
Yeah.
So I enjoy watching a good story be told over an hour and being able to work a body part, being able to work on something, and maybe catch a fall here, maybe get up 2 falls, and then another guy comes back and what have you, or be up 2 falls in the last 2 minutes, and the other guy has to scramble. I just enjoy a well-told story
Right.
inside of a 60-minute Ironman match. And the story that was told that I think is lost on people sometimes is Bret's story was one of he can't beat me in 60 minutes. And Bret incorrectly feeling as the champion, I don't have to beat him in 60 minutes. So Bret is simply holding on to his championship, making sure, Shawn, you got to beat me. I don't have to beat you. You get to the end of the 60 minutes. No, he didn't beat Bret. Bret, bye bye. I'm done. You didn't beat me. Gorilla Monsoon, no, there must be a winner, and we're going to do sudden death. And then Shawn beats him. It was, to me, a beautifully told story. One that was simple for everyone to understand. And you got a lot of ups and downs in it throughout the entire match. And two of the greatest of all time in that ring, doing it. So, yeah, I thought they did a great job.
It is I mean, listen, two of the best wrestlers of all time. And just let's just start with the entrance of the thing. Shawn Michaels zip lines down from the top of the building, and as it's become a pretty legendary story, the narrative has always been out there. Vince won't ask his performers to do anything he's not willing to do himself. And I think there's even footage out there I've seen of Vince doing this zip line stunt the night before. What do you remember of that?
Well, we went up there to do it, and it was a day of. Went in, and Vince got in the harness, did everything, and just jumped off. What no one took into account was the way that the lighting truss was and where the zip line was. And Vince was headed right straight for the lighting truss. Thank God he saw it and got his legs out in front of him and was able to kick off. But it was a pretty scary thing. And Shawn and I looked at each other, and I wanted to go next. And Shawn and I looked at each other and said, you can go. You can do it. I'm good. Because, I mean, you were up there, dude, and completely safe. But I'm afraid of heights anyway. I wanted to do it for my fear of heights to I do stupid shit like that sometimes. But it was pretty cool, man. We knew it. They did it with the ducks, where they would have like somebody deliver a puck during the game to come down on the zip line and all that shit. So we wanted to utilize that. Someone asked us if we wanted to do it. Thought it'd be cool for Shawn to do.
Super cool to do. Quite the entrance. Bret had a more traditional entrance, not nearly as elaborate. And Dave would say Hart didn't get as big of a pop coming out as Michaels, but he didn't do an elaborate entrance, but he received no boos coming out. And he says the first half of the match was slow paced and very little crowd noise. It wasn't as if the crowd was intensely watching because people were steadily leaving for the concession stands. But the execution on both sides was tremendous in what they were doing. That to me tells the story. Like, I think this Iron Man stiff is a dud for a WrestleMania main event. I know you disagree, but the actual wrestling itself is unbelievable. Go out of your way to watch it. I'm sure that Pat Patterson was heavily involved in putting this together. As you understand
He
it,
was crying on a bed. Bret the Shawn about the bed. He loved it.
so as a reminder, time expires and we're all tied up at 0. No one has lost a pin yet. And it's a drop kick off the top, and Bret catches him in a sharpshooter. Shawn does not submit, but the bell rings. Bret gets up, grabs the belt, starts heading towards the back, and here comes Gorilla Monsoon. And he's going to say, we've got to restart the match and do sudden death. And you can see Bret mouthing, why? And there is almost no reaction to the restart of the match. And usually when it's something where this is done and the heel is thinking they've got away with a win and the commissioner says, no, we're going to restart the match, there's a big pop because, yay, our baby face is going to get another shot and, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't work as well here because they're both baby face guys. And in the overtime, Shawn hits not one, but 2 super kicks in less than 2 minutes. He gets the win. He's going to nearly choke up in the ring. And in the middle of the celebration, Shawn is going to kiss Helen Hart and hug Bret's son, Blade. Bret's going to walk out of the ring. And of course, the story evolves from there about what was said and how there were some hurt feelings. Do you remember, like, when you guys are talking about the way the exit happens? Bret's going to leave. Shawn's going to celebrate. We know that Bret's going to be taking some time off, but what seeds were you trying to plant and what was just real life between the guys?
Bret's idea. Bret wanted to leave frustrated, not speak to anybody, grab his stuff and go. To give the locker room and anybody backstage that would have seen him the perception, wow, Bret's really pissed off at this. Because Bret was going to South Africa not to be heard from for a while. And then when he comes back, you get back into the stuff with Shawn, and maybe he turns heel, he being Bret. But that was Bret. That was Bret wanting to plant seeds at that point in time. And everybody else took it as a shoot, and everybody took it as, oh, Bret's pissed off. Bret was working.
Right.
Shawn knew, they all knew. But I think the only ones that really knew inside was Vince and myself.
We've talked a little bit about, the passing of the torch at WrestleMania. And 6 years prior to this, we saw a babyface versus a babyface with the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan. And now we've got the same thing, babyface and babyface for the world title, but with Bret and Shawn. Mm-hmm. Do you think in hindsight, there would have been more drama had there been more falls? Had one of the guys been a heel? Or did you just think it was perfect just as it was?
Well, you're asking the guy who put it on. I thought it was perfect the way it was.
Right.
Sure, you could have had a heel and babyface and told a different story, and it would have been great. I thought the story that we told was great, of 2 of the absolute best in their prime at that time, battling it out for the top prize. I thought it was excellent.
I just wonder if Shawn would have come in as the heel, and granted it wouldn't have worked, but I also wonder, is Bret leaving a necessary part of the story? like I think there's always going to be comparisons, right? So like when we're trying to get Macho Man over after WrestleMania 4 and he's the world champ, Hogan's going to be gone doing the movie, but it's almost like if he sticks around, okay, yeah, we like Randy, he's the world champ, but we're really here to see Hogan. Do you think it's important to cement Shawn as the top guy, and that can only really become the case if Bret goes away for a bit, or is that me overthinking it?
I think you're overthinking it, but it does help that Bret went away to
Yeah,
give Shawn time alone.
right. The the story that came out even years later on the DVD with Bret and Shawn, and they're talking about their history, is that Shawn says to Earl something along the lines of, "Tell Bret to get the fuck out of the ring."
Yeah.
Talk me through that, because you said Bret was working. This was Bret's idea, but get the fuck out of the ring. There were some hard feelings about that.
And it weren't hard feelings. I disagree with that.
Okay.
As Bret said, he was upset about that.
Yes.
He did.
Yes. But now I don't know if when he said that he's trying to sell DVDs. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
You didn't after the match. You didn't feel like you felt like it was high fives all around. These guys are
No, it wasn't high fives. Bret walked out of the building. And Bret Gatelet wanted to leave the impression in everybody talking and
even the
buzzing,
boys.
even the boys.
I got you.
I called him that night, called him being Bret. He was very pleased with the match. Shawn was very pleased with the match, and they were both happy as could be.
How was Vince? What did Vince think?
Loved it.
And Pat was crying.
Pat was crying.
How religious?
Shawn, I think put the boom at the game. Hey, start on the five. It's great.
Uh, who was happier it was over, you or Stephanie?
Um, Probably Steph was happy because she got to go to Vegas. I still had TV to do.
So the next day, of course, you've got to do Monday Night Raw. She goes to Vegas and starts hanging out. What day did you get married? How many days after WrestleMania?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Who all was in attendance, wrestling wise?
Oh gosh. So Vince, Pat, my brother Tom, we flew over from San Diego on Sunday morning. I mean on Wednesday morning, I guess it was. Jim Ross was there. Monsoon was there. Howard Finkel, Cornette. Vince Russo was there. And then I think that's it from the wrestling side of things. Then a bunch of friends from Houston, close friends from Houston.
You guys did
It was fun.
You guys did some cool stuff in this era. You're going to cut up pieces of the ring canvas and make that a collectible. And it's one of the only times that we see the show logo on the canvas like that. You guys didn't do that very often. Why not? Did you not like that look? Did Vince not like that look?
Nope. Nobody like a clean canvas.
Yeah.
Looks sturdy. I think Bret Hart said it best, all along, is that when, Bret considers himself an artist. And one of his criticisms of WCW was he felt he didn't like the rings. And that's where you make your art. The rings had logos on it and all that.
It should be a blank canvas for him to paint on.
Blank canvas, and the talent is the picture. Talent's what you pay attention to. So I like that clean look. Always have.
Michael Burgett wants to know, how was the match laid out between Piper and Goldust, and how would it have been if Razor was in the match? Would there have been a difference? We talked about the actual match that we saw. Would the match have looked pretty similar with Razor, do you think, or different?
I mean, it would have been different just because the Razor in and of itself, different styles and everything else.
Right.
But we'll never know.
We will never know, and we'll never know what we're going to be doing next week here on Something to Wrestle. I hope that we get to tape another one very, very soon. I think we have a little window of opportunity here. We're going to try to load up as much as we can. In the meantime, check us out in the archives, somethingtowrestle.com. Be sure to pick up some swag over at boxofgimmicks.com. I'd love to have your interaction on Twitter. It's at Prichard Show. We'll see you next week right here on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard.
That's me. Rock on.